Hello, fourth grade readers. It's Mrs. Lamondo, and I'm back to read you our Fontes and Pinnell mini lesson of the day. Today, we're going to combine two mini lessons into one, so let's get started. Today, we're going to be looking at characters and how their opinions and reactions of things can differ from those around them. So let's start. We're at LA U26 Lesson 3. So first off, I want to revisit a book that we know well, The Lost Lake. You're going to look at page 5 as I read the first sentence on page 4. You know who the main character is, but there are other characters in the story too. They are called secondary characters. In Lost Lake, who is the main character and who is the secondary character? So here is page 4 and 5. I went to live with Dad last summer. So right away, we see that the main character is telling the story from first person perspective. He is saying I. The secondary character is Dad. Now, let's look at pages 6 to 7. What do we notice about how the boy and the dad see the situation? One morning, I started cutting pictures out of old magazines just to be doing something. There were pictures of mountains and rivers and lakes, and some showed people fishing and canoeing. Looking at them made me feel cool, so I pinned them up in my room. Dad didn't notice for 2 days. When he did, he looked at them one by one. Nice pictures, he said. Are you angry with me, Dad? I asked, because he saved old magazines for his work. It's all right, Luke, he said. I'm having this place painted soon anyway. He thought I was talking about the marks I'd made on the wall. So right away, right, we see that the boy, Luke, thinks that his dad is mad at him for cutting up magazines. But the dad is actually thinking about how the marks would go on the wall. And later on, as we know because we've read it, he thinks about taking a trip to the lake. Now let's look at Ruth in the Green Book. This is a book that always gets me so much. Let's revisit pages 5 to 6. Oops, sorry. Let me get where I'm going here. Okay, here's pages 5 to 6. I was tired when Daddy stopped the automobile. I asked Mama where we were, and she said we were going to spend the night in a real hotel. We watched Daddy talking to the man behind the desk. Daddy was smiling and pointing to us, but the man shook his head and turned his back. Daddy came back out and slammed the car door. He never slammed the door before, so I knew he was mad. I wondered what happened, but I knew somehow it wasn't a good time to ask him. Mama gave me a look that said, Ruth, keep quiet, so that's what I did. So when we look there, do Ruth and her mom see things the same or differently? We can kind of tell, right, that Ruth is wondering what the problem is, wants to ask. She's inquisitive, but Mama is telling her to keep her mouth shut. We can see that Mama has maybe experienced racism before in a way that Ruth has not. So one thing to look for. Today we talked about how characters see things differently. As you're reading fiction, think about all of the characters in your book, the main character and the secondary characters. Think about how they see things differently. When you do that, you'll understand the story even better. Let's keep going into LA U26 Lesson 4. So again, we're going to revisit Ruth in the Green Book momentarily, but we're going to start with heroes now. Now, I'm going to read the text and the illustrations on pages 1 to 5. And I want you to think about the things that Donnie and the other characters say, do, or think. What do their words, actions, and thoughts tell you about what Donnie really wants, our main character, Donnie? My dad drove me to school every morning, but I wished he wouldn't. That was because the other kids walking to school always turned around and stared. Some pointed, others pretended their fingers were guns and aimed at us. How come we're always the bad guys? I asked my dad. That's only in the movies, he replied. Still, if I could talk my dad into it, I had him pull the truck over and drop me off down the street. After school, I got together with my friends. I tried to start a football game, but they wanted to play war again. That was because they had always an enemy to fight, me. Tori had all the toy guns, and Zach and Reggie always helped bring them to the woods at the end of our street where I met them. Zach usually brought something that was his dad's. He showed us pictures of his father in a war, some medals. He was a war hero, Zach said, and then repeated how I always had to be the enemy when we played war because I looked like one of them. Get moving, Donnie, Zach commanded. You're the bad guy and we're going to hunt you down. No, I'm not, I protested. My dad was in our army and he fought in Italy and France. And my uncle Yosh was in Korea. No way, said Zach. How could your dad or uncle be in our army? Tori asked. Yeah, Reggie agreed. There wasn't anybody looking like you guys on our side. If you can't prove it, you better start hiding, Donnie. I couldn't prove it, so I had to be the bad guy again. I hated it. Still, it was better than having no friends at all. So here, what does Donnie really want? What do his thoughts, his feelings, his actions tell us? If you guessed that Donnie doesn't want to be treated differently because of the way he looks, you're right. That's what he wants inside, and we can tell that through his thoughts, his feelings, and his actions. Now let's look back at Daddy in Ruth in the Green Book. So I'm going to start with pages 7 and 8, and then we may get to 11. So let me just make sure I'm in the right spot, if you don't mind giving me one moment. All right, so we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so here's pages 7 to 8. I was tired when Daddy stopped the automobile. I asked Mama where we were, and she said we were going to spend the night in a real hotel. We watched Daddy talking to the man behind the desk. Daddy was smiling and pointing to us, but the man shook his head and turned his back. Daddy came out and slammed the car door. He never slammed the door before, so I knew he was mad. I wondered what happened, but I knew somehow it wasn't a good time to ask him. Mama gave me a look that said, Ruth, just keep quiet, so that's what I did. Let's look how Daddy acts on page 11 as well. So we're just on 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. When we crossed into Tennessee, Daddy said his friend Eddie lived close by. He was sure we could sleep there. Eddie was so happy to see us. He gave me a big hug and told me that he knew when I was real little. His wife Alice cooked us a warm meal and I ate too much. Daddy and Eddie used to play music in a band before they went off and fought in the war. They talked about how they traveled a lot back then and how they always had a hard time finding places to rest and eat. Daddy shook his head and said he hoped that the war had changed things, but he could see he was wrong. So when we look in that book, how does Ruth's father show us what he really wants? Much like Donnie in Heroes, right? Ruth's dad wants to be treated fairly. He doesn't want to be judged by the color of his skin. He wants his family to have a warm place to sleep and to be treated equally. When you notice what a character really wants, you have probably identified the main problem in the story. The rest of the story will be about how the character tries to get what he or she wants. So today we talked about what characters really want. When you think about what a character wants, it helps you understand the story. When you're reading a fiction book today, please think about your character and what they want. Again, that will help you identify the problem. A lot of the story will center around how to solve that problem or the solution. Don't forget today to make sure you read for 15 minutes. Please make sure you fill out a reading response. And as always, if you have any questions, please direct them to your classroom teacher as needed. That's all for this time. We'll see you next time, fourth grade readers. Bye.